Maybe the next game we can play at is Goat Simulator. Maybe the next game we can play at is Goat Simulator. Maybe the next game we can play at is Goat Simulator. Maybe the next game we can play at is Goat Simulator.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. It's Sunday evening. That means it's time for SKR Season 7, Round 7. This is the finale, and we're in Monte Carlo. If you haven't had enough Monte Carlo for one afternoon, hopefully this one will be a little more exciting. Of course, we just had the Monte Carlo Grand Prix end about 30 minutes ago. Now we're doing it again, and just to give it a bit of a twist as a finale, we've decided to do it at night. Already some action out on track. We see a Ferrari leaving the pits. Seems like both Ferraris leaving the pits. It's a very difficult racetrack, as we saw this afternoon, to make passes on. Just the one DRS zone, and it's not the most effective DRS zone on the calendar. It's up the main straight that isn't really that straight. So there's not too much you can do. Best opportunity is really if you can get alongside here in the tunnel. We saw it in Formula 2. Saw it more than once in Formula 2. Drivers going alongside in the tunnel, then out braking into the chicane. Other than that, not a lot of overtaking available. Obviously into turn 1 if the driver ahead makes a mistake. If the driver ahead is able to hold their line, keep the car in a straight line, and really just park the car in the middle of the corners, very difficult to make an overtake. Also probably one of the easiest tracks to charge your battery on. Spend a lot of time on the brakes. We have 13 runners for this finale of Season 7. Obviously this is also the finale of us on F123. Some it will be a sad goodbye. For others, they'll be happy to see it go. Welcome to everyone who's watching, everyone who's joined us for the broadcast of SKR. Today I have been watching motorsport throughout. Started with Formula E early in the morning in Shanghai, then Formula 3, Formula 2, Moto 3, Moto 2, Moto GP, Formula 1. Now I'm doing commentary, and when I'm done with this, I'm watching the Indy 500. I actually saw that in qualifying yesterday. Some cars coming almost stationary on the grid, trying to make room for the quicker drivers. You're also trying to manage your own quick lap, make sure you don't run into anybody. Traffic on a circuit like this, it's exaggerated, it's worse than on any other circuit. Such a narrow track, and sometimes that driver ahead of you, if you catch him in the wrong part of the circuit, there's not much he can do to get out of your way. So all the drivers need to have track awareness. They need to know where they are on track, where their competitors are. No real surprises in the tyres. Everybody on a set of softs with the exception of Venom. He went out, set that first lap on hards, so we know he's got a lot more. Aphrodoc's the quickest man on circuit and the only man in the 110s. It's a 110.5. Mr. MP2, 111.2. These are the first runs now coming through. Convoy went P3 and then retired. Pantry Star P4. And Divan making up the top 5 after those first runs. Still waiting for a lap from Skull. He's out on a quick lap to ride with the Ferrari as he comes out of swimming pool and into this very tight final corner, which they've actually widened in the last, because in 2021 she widened that and made the approach to the straight a lot easier. And good lap from Skull, goes up into P5 and he's the lead Ferrari. The only man yet to set a lap time, the Red Bull. Car that didn't have too much fun around Monte Carlo earlier this afternoon. It's Martin de Brain, no lap time from him, his teammate up in P2, but quite some distance away from P1, 7/10 of a second. And if he was on a quick lap, he ran into all sorts of traffic. So still no lap time from the second Red Bull. This is the other Red Bull, challenging for pole. 11.2, good enough for P2. But the man in third has retired, so he's not going to be able to improve. It's going to be a sitting duck. Pantry Star knows what he needs to do to improve. Skull went over the line recently. It was good enough to put him into the top 5. Had some good results out of that driver recently. Keep your eyes on him. Here in Monaco, anything can happen. Even if you're not one of the quickest drivers in the field and you didn't come into this race expecting a victory, it could very well happen. Of course, safety cars can cause a lot of havoc, especially on a circuit like this, the shortest circuit on the calendar. That brings a new meaning to concentration. Obviously, on the other tracks on the game, for a lot of the corners, for a lot of the tracks, you can always have a little bit of leeway. You can even stick a wheel on the grass. Places like Hungary, places like Monza, where the walls are close, but you can still make that slight error and get away with it. But here in Monte Carlo, hit one of those Armco barriers, you're done for. And if you have a lot of cars closely behind you, we could find ourselves in a situation like lap 1 in the race earlier. You just have an incident that takes out 3 or 4 of the competitors in one go. Martin de Brain does get that first lap in. It's a 12.9. It's good enough to put him in P12. And he'll be happy that he finally got that benchmark down. Mr. Rem, he's returning to the pits. He did improve, but not in position, only in time. He went up to a 10.8, so he has closed that gap to Afrodox, but not quite enough. Divan in P3. Conboy was in P3, but he retired, so he's slipping down the order without being able to improve. Pantry Star out on track, he's on an outlap. Spikes has just returned to the pits. Who's on a quick lap? Martin de Brain's on an in lap. Venom, just having fun out there. Currently in P13. It's on a 4 lap old set of hards, so still a lot to come from the Aston Martin. He's not coming into the pits, so he's going to have another lap on those tyres. Maybe he just hasn't done his practice running and just wanted to get some extra laps in before the race, leaving the quick lap for last. This is Pantry Star currently in P5. Skull was in P5, now demoted to P6. Andre just behind. Nothing in it there between Skull and Andre, just under half a tenth. The second Ferrari of Louis in P8, Spikes V9, Smurf currently in P10 as he comes out of the tunnel. That tunnel has been there since the first Monaco Grand Prix. It used to be a lot shorter. It was simply for a road to cross over it. Since then, tunnel's much longer. There's the famous Monte Carlo Hotel built on top of it. Smurf improves from P10, goes up into P6. Nice improvement. If any circuit on the calendar it is crucial to have a good qualifying position, it is this one. No better example than if you watched the Monaco Grand Prix just an hour ago on. You would have seen that there wasn't much overtaking. In fact, the top four finished exactly where they started. And that is something you will probably see in this race. Overtakes are not going to be easy. Every single overtake that we do see is going to take either one of the drivers making a mistake or one of the drivers taking a lot of risk. So don't expect the normal driver of the day performances we see at other circuits where the quicker drivers can make a mistake, come back through the field with relative ease. I think today, if you do make a mistake and find yourself at the rear of the field, things are going to be a lot more difficult. Welcome to Skull in the comment section. Thanks for joining the stream. Even though you're busy sitting in the pits, getting ready for another run. That is obviously the driver currently in P8 and the second Ferrari. His teammate's just gone up into P3, 111.4. Martin de Bruyn looking to improve. Got that first run down. Took him a while to get that first lap in. Breathed a sigh of relief when he did. It's a 12.9. He's gonna have to find an improvement, get himself up into the top 10. Convoy, remember he was in P3. He's gonna continue dropping down the order as the drivers find confidence and they use a little bit more of the racetrack each time. They're gonna find time each time they go around. This is a track where to get the ultimate lap, there needs to be a lot of bravery involved. It's a famous Ayrton Senna story around this circuit, where Ayrton Senna hit a barrier in qualifying. Wasn't too impressed about it because he was on a flying lap, would have taken pole by a huge margin. Then hit the Armco barrier, went back to the pits, and when asked about it, he gave the answer that he didn't hit the barrier had moved. Everybody found it quite funny, had a laugh, and that only made Senna more angry. So after the session they took a walk down to the curb, and the barrier had in fact moved. There had been an incident earlier on in one of the support races, and when the barrier had been replaced, it was 3 mils further into the track than it was supposed to be. Meaning that if it was where it was supposed to be, Senna would have missed it by 2 millimeters. And that was a lap that was on board for being a second faster than anyone in the field. Skull gets a 5 grid place penalty for illegal blocking. So difficult on this circuit. You can't actually even blame the driver. We didn't see it on screen, but we've said it earlier on in the stream. If a driver does catch you just on the wrong part of the racetrack, sometimes there's nothing you can do, and then you've already impeded his lap. So Skull in P8, he's on an outlap. He needs to find an improvement because he's going to get demoted a further 5 positions. So if he finished in P8, he'd be starting in P13. That's not how you want to get your Monaco evening going. Here we see Smurf also just stationary on the circuit and then going very slowly into the tunnel. Everybody understandably looking for space on the circuit. just causing havoc in the latter stages of qualifying. Now Divan goes through the final corner. We saw he was purple in sector 2, using all of the racetrack, missing the barrier on the outside there, clipping the curb. Oh, and just missing a car on the pit exit. Divan stays P3, 111.1. So only 2 drivers in the 10s. That is Afrodox P1, Mr. Rem P2. Afrodox has just emerged from the pits. Mr. Rem ready up the road. Thought he was on a fast lap. That doesn't appear to be the case. Seems like he's winding up for one. This is Venom. He left things late. Remember, he did most of the session on a set of hard tyres. Now he's gone out on a set of softs. He's set P5 to 111.3. Times at the front relatively close. The lead Ferrari P6 111.4. It's not so much that the track keeps evolving, it's that the drivers keep evolving. Remember, this is Monte Carlo, the barriers come close. You've got to have confidence into all of these corners to use all of the racetrack that is available to you. And with each and every single lap, with each and every single corner these cars turn, they will gain that confidence. And that's why we just see the lap times continuously coming down. Afrodox fastest man is on an outlap. Man currently in P2, Mr. Rem. He is on what appears to be a quick lap, going through the swimming pool section. And then into a chicane that is so vital. Loses it on the exit, it seems. Has he backed off? I think he's backed off. There we go, he comes back into the pits. Mr. M unsuccessful on that final run, just getting out of shape on the exit. Just a little bit too hungry on the accelerator, wanted to get going a little too early and the car wasn't ready. A squirm and into the Armco. And that's why I say on any other track you might have had some tarmac runoff. You could have just got a wheel off the track. Would have maybe lost a 10th and a half, but on this occasion cost you your whole lap. This is Afrodox, current pole sitter. Does he find even more time? He's currently in sector 2. Such commitment through swimming pool. Not quicker in sector 2. I think that may be his session as well. Let's stay with Afrodox just as he goes over the line, see if he can improve. Didn't find an improvement in sector 2. No, he doesn't find an improvement. I think the checkered flag has fallen for most of the drivers. Venom still out on track, that car squirming around. Louis still out on track. Going through the smoke of the Aston Martin that's just locked up ahead of him. These two cars probably a little bit closer together than they'd like on their final run. So we have Venom and Louis still out on track. We also have Chums out on circuit. He's approaching the end of his lap, looking for an improvement. Currently at 12.8, only good enough for P13. Does he find the late improvement? He does. Goes up into P12. Is there anyone else still out on track? Yes, still have Louis and Venom. Venom's going to get over the line first. Let's see if he can find an improvement. Current best is an 11.3, good enough for P5. And he's going to stay in P5. Louis was just behind, but he's returned to the pits, so no improvement there. And now we just need to wait for the clock to tick down so we can get ready for the real thing. So there you have your official results for qualifying. Afrodox setting the fastest lap, 10.5. and it's good enough for pole position. Then Mr. M P2, Divan P3, Pantry Star P4, Venom P5, Louis P6, Andre P7, Convoy P8, Skull P9, Smurf making up the top 10. They're not in the top 10 here in Monaco. They're going to have their hands full. Spikes P11, Chums P12, Martin de Bruin 13, Top Gun 14, and Harsh Cartoon. I think he squeezed in right at the end, so he didn't set a lap time. He'll be starting from the rear of the field. And if you are interested in the Indy 500, just an update from the Indy 500. I have it on mute so I can't hear the commentary, but it appears like that race may be delayed. IndyCar not a wet sport, and that track appearing to be a little wet. Obviously now we're looking at the empty pit lane. All the drivers, they'll be to the right of us on the start finish line, getting ready, deciding their final strategies, if there's any changes, what tyre they want to start on, when do they intend on pitting, and do they expect safety cars. Of course, with the slow nature of this circuit, if you don't underfuel, you could find yourself with quite a bit of fuel. If the safety car doesn't come out, then you could find yourself doing fuel management. Of course, if you do have to do fuel management, this is probably the track on the calendar you can get away with it the most. Got quite a few people joining, obviously missed quali, but joining just in time for the race, so welcome. SKR Sunday night, we're about to get ready for the finale, season 7, round 7, and it's here in the evening in Monte Carlo. And there we go, your red lights. It's going to be 5 of them. They're going to disappear, and then those cars are going to be on their way. It's Mercedes versus Red Bull into turn 1. We've heard that many times before. Mercedes comes out on top for now. Afrodox leads the way. Mr. Rem P2, Divan P3. So they're going line astern. Not a lot of overtakes at the beginning of the race. We've got Venom in P5. Then the lead Ferrari, Louis P6. Coming under all sorts of pressure. Convoy in P7. Tired early on in qualifying. Andre P8, Smurf P9. Spikes making up the top 10. Then outside the top 10 we've got Chums, Martin de Bruin, Top Gun, Skull. Remember, Skull had that penalty in qualifying for impeding another car. And then Harsh Cartoon at the rear of the field. Back to the front of the field, Afrodox leads the way from the rest. Let's have a look at some of the tyre situation. As you can see, a majority of the field, 11 of the 15 drivers going with the medium compound, just 4 of the drivers going with the hard. 3 of those hard runners are at the rear of the field, so it explains that decision. The other hard runner is in 5th place, that's Venom. And remember, if you watched qualifying, he got quite a few laps in on the hard tyre. He did about 6 laps on the hard tyre, so he'll have some nice data going into the race with that tyre. Of course, he'll be running a lot heavier fuel than he did in qualifying. Afrodox from Mr. M, Divan P3, Pantry Star P4, Venom P5. Don't think we're going to see a lot of track limit penalties at this circuit. If we do, it'll probably be for turn 1. And if anybody is not able to manage this chicane and jumps over it, that can be quite a hefty penalty. Going past the marina Pantry Star still in P4. Staying on terms with the Haas ahead of him, Divan. Divan still very close to Mr. M. Aphrodux on the other hand setting fastest laps, pulling away at the front, 2.5 seconds the gap at the front. Harsh Cartoon where he started, still at the rear of the field. In P15, Skull trying to have a recovery drive, was having a fantastic qualifying until that penalty arrived. Would have started a lot higher up the field. Now he's got to make his way up the field through one of the most difficult circuits, or the most difficult circuit on the calendar to make an overtake. So everybody at the back, they've got to hope for safety cars, they've got to hope for pit stops that work their way. Because you may not be able to make all those positions on the track. You're going to have to rely on something special, something outside of your control. Something that can happen and switch things around, because if things continue in this manner, nobody's got the pace to stay with Aphrodux. Mercedes running away at the front, 3 seconds on lap 3. So taking a second out of the field on average per lap. Pantry Star still P4, Venom still P5, Louis still P6. No positions being changed. Everybody staying in position for now. Most exciting part of the race may be when the pit stops come. Venom in a race of his own. Do have a caution. We look immediately to the map to see if we see anybody stationary. Let's go to the rear of the field. May have just been a car going slowly or a car that hit the barrier, but seems like everything is back underway. Green flag. Aphrodite still leads 3.8 seconds, so that gap continues to grow. Mr. M P2, Divan P3. What a big gap between P2 and 3 now. So no battles at the front. To find your first battle, you've got to go all the way back to P6. Battle for P6. Louis defending that position. And he's got a lot of drivers behind him that want that position. Andre just behind. Conboy just behind. Smurf, Spikes, Chums, everybody close behind. And forming a bit of a queue now behind that Ferrari. This is Harsh Cartoon, currently in P14. Remember, he did not take part in qualifying. Got in right at the end. Was able to make the race, but that meant he had to start in P15. We have had a DNF. That was Martin de Bruin. That was the yellow we saw earlier. We do have a caution again. Hopefully that's all it is, just a caution. Last thing that Mercedes driver out front will want now is a safety car to come out and cancel all the work he's done. 5 seconds the gap now, lap 5, so continues to take an average of a second a lap out of the field. Welcome also to Visor in the comment section. Saying he's here to watch Harsh Cartoon, currently in P14. Tonight's race will be a handful. He's probably going to need a little bit of luck to go his way. Already so difficult when you start in low down in the order in Monaco. And then I don't think the race really went according to plan. Louis was falling down the order, but he's jumped into the pits. And now the leading Ferrari is Skull. He's got some clean air ahead of him, so he can attack. Try and make up some time. In fact, we don't see a lot of battles out on track. In fact, the only battle within DRS range, and that's not even a battle, that is somebody coming out of the pits, so that needs to work itself out again. We have no DRS battles on circuit. Mr. M being pushed by the horse. Leaders run away off into the distance, but Mr. M hasn't had the privilege of such a race. He's had the horse in his mirrors throughout. Lap 7 of 39, the most laps you'll ever see in a 50% race, due to this being the shortest track on the calendar. Louis, having made that pit stop, he is now at the rear of the field. Top Gun also made a pit stop, as did Convoy. Means Harsh Cartoon has been promoted up into P11, just outside the points. Still needs to make a pit stop. Freddock's out front. Nothing's changed there. Mr. Rem still has the horse in his mirrors, but out of DRS. That'll make him feel a little bit more comfortable. Pantry Star in P4, where he's been for the entirety of this race. Venom P5. And we get the first of the two AlphaTauris. Andre. Two AlphaTauris right, going line astern. P5 and 6. That's Andre and Smurf. Spikes P8. Chums P9. And Skull now just inside the points, but that car still needs to pit. This is the Aston Martin of Venom. He's had a race of his own, really. And remember, this car, we haven't spoken too much about Venom, because he's in P5, looks like he's in the middle of nowhere, but he's really not. He's the only car in the top 10 that started the race on hards. He spent 5 or 6 laps in qualifying just driving around on hards, not trying to set an ultimate lap. So he's got hard tyre data. And he's going to go deeper into this race than the 4 cars ahead of him. So keep your eyes on this Aston Martin. He's got a interesting strategy. And one that could prove to be crucial. Harsh Cartoon, another car that started on the hards. So going from the rear of the field, wanted to go as deep into this race as possible. Convoy in the second of the two Mercedes in P12. That car has made a pit stop. His teammate up in the lead of the race, continuing to grow that gap. 8.2 seconds now. 8.4 seconds now, the gap over 9 laps. So he has dropped from the 1 second a lap barrier. Either the rest of the field catching up a little, or Freddock's just calming down a little. And when you do hear occasional pauses of silence, it's because I'm checking on the Indy 500. But the last time I checked, it seemed like bad weather was in the area. I don't believe we go oval racing in the rain. This is Mr. M all on his own. Divan P3, that gap is now extending, so the horse not able to maintain the pressure, now starting to fall adrift. This is Pantry Star, he is coming under pressure. We were looking for a DRS battle earlier on in the race. Here is a DRS battle, and it's a big one. It's for P4. Remember now, the race starting to change. And it is still raining at Indy. So the race now beginning to change as far as these tyres go. Remember the top 4 all on the medium compound. Venom in P5. He's the first of the drivers to go on an alternate strategy. He started on the hard. He went against what everybody else did. And now his tyres are coming into their window, as the mediums will be starting to fall off for the rest. This is the battle for P13, Louis versus Top Gun. That is a battle not for points. Then Harsh Cartoon, P12, Convoy has been able to clear that Alpine. Convoy now up into P11. Still holding on to that final point, but he needs to come into the pits. He's not going to do it this time around, stays out for another lap. It'll be interesting to see when exactly these medium runners do come in and how much further Venom intends on going into this race. 3-second time penalty for the second Ferrari in the field. That's Louis down in P14. So has to come up through the field and now just made his job a little bit more difficult. Top Gun goes into the pits, so he will re-emerge at the rear of the field. One man who doesn't have to worry about being at the rear of the field is the Mercedes of Aphrodite. The gap 11 seconds at the front as we go to lap 12. And there's just nobody that can do anything about that Mercedes-Benz. Someone seems quite well practiced and well rehearsed around the streets of Monte Carlo. And what's even more impressive is we started with 15, we still have 14 drivers, we just had the one retirement. Around a track like this, where any sort of mistake could be your last. And probably will be. Through the famous tunnel. Still so many laps to go. 39 laps in this race. We'll be trying not to think about the laps remaining in this race. Won't want to look at that. Makes the race drag on and on and on. Lap 12, 13, 14. So you try not to look at it. Just get into the rhythm of the race. Hopefully when you look at it again, 20 laps have passed. The leader is doing everything he needs to do. If he carries on at this pace, he could very well open himself a pit window. We know we need about between 20 and 23 seconds to do a pit stop here in Monte Carlo. So if he can extend that gap even further, he could get a free pit stop out of all of this. In fact, if he were to pit, he'd probably come out in P4. So Aphrodite's in a very strong position. Cut to the Williams, the only Williams here this evening, Top Gun. P14. 20 seconds adrift from the field. The only positive he has is that he's got clean air ahead of him. Louis also clean air ahead of him, but he's got a penalty. Harsh Cartoon continues on his journey to the points. He's in P12 now. And the Convoy qualified well and then retired early on in qualifying. Wasn't able to improve. We could have seen him finish higher up the order. His first run was very impressive, but we never got to see a second one. Fantastic driving from Convoy as he steals another position, now up into the points, P10. And Chums coming under all sorts of pressure from the second Mercedes. Convoy doesn't want to waste any time behind the Mercedes. So difficult around this racetrack. You can get stuck behind a car that is so much slower than you, but there's nothing you can do. On any other racetrack on the calendar, you'll just wait for your moment, open up DRS and finish off the job. But over here, that driver ahead of you can just hold his racing line, park that car in the middle of the corners. He can make it so difficult for you to get past, even if you do have the superior pace. Track does have a DRS zone. It's probably one of the most useless DRS zones in the sport. Aphrodite comes into the pits. This is your leader. Let's go to P2 and see if he responds. Same strategies for all of those cars. And Mr. M does respond, comes into the pits immediately, and while he's coming into the pit entry, Conboy's already at the pit exit. Ooh, very, very close there. Divan goes into the lead of the race. This was the man in P3. He's now just gone ahead of Aphrodux. Aphrodux is your provisional leader of the race. Remember, the driver ahead of him is yet to make a pit stop. Pantry Star still in P3. This is your new leader of the race. But for how much longer? Trying to hold Aphrodux back. Aphrodux has led this race from pole position up until the time he pit, and now the superior tyres. It's not much that Divan could have done. Plus the pass was inevitable. He knew he had to come into the pits. No point in trying to hold up the Mercedes any longer. And I'm sure we'll see Divan coming into the pits at the end of this lap. He's actually lost a lot of ground since that Mercedes passed him. What the awkward pit entry. And now we'll see after that round of pit stops, were they able to close the gap on Aphrodux, or is that gap extended? Well, you can see the gap between P1 and 2 is 5.5 seconds, but that car in P2 is yet to pit. So the Mercedes in a very dominant position as things stand. Aphrodux out front, Pantry Star P2, Venom P3. Remember, Venom on a very different strategy to the drivers around him. He's going deeper into this race than those medium runners, which means in the second stint of the race he should have the tyre advantage. He's been able to hold this race together very well, considering he was on the slower tyre. Now he's going to have the quicker tyre available to him, which means he should have an enjoyable second half of the race. Let's go through the field, see if we can find any battles. According to your timing screen, there is no DRS battles. The only DRS battle we have is this one here, for P2. Venom on the back of Pantry Star. Both these cars yet to pit. Pantry Star on 16 lap old mediums, Venom on 16 lap old hards. Venom should have the superior tyre at the moment. Those mediums should be falling off. Everybody else on a set of mediums, or rather that started on a set of mediums, has come into the pits. Pantry Star taking these mediums further than anyone else. But for Paul, how much longer does he intend to stay out there? Surely he's losing time. And Aphrodux at the front, just extending that gap even further. This is the man that is provisionally second. 2 cars ahead of him are yet to pit. So Mr. M showing in P4. But technically, he is second in this race. Just a lot of the drivers doing different things with their strategies. Some starting on hards, some starting on medium. Some of the medium runners pitted early. Some of them are extending that tyre, like Smurf, 17 laps on the medium. Pantry Star, 17 laps on the medium. Only those 2 cars. Earlier I made a mistake, said the only one was Pantry Star. But in fact, Pantry Star and Smurf, the only 2 cars still on medium since the start of the race. And you can now see a queue starting to form behind Pantry Star. And who will be laughing all the way will be Aphrodux. The longer Pantry Star stays there, the longer he holds up this queue. And in the back of that queue is the man provisionally in P2, He's trying everything he can to stay on terms with Afrodox, but he needs to get past these two first. And he's got past one of them. He gets past Venom. Brave move there up the inside. Needed his opponent also to respect the move, otherwise that could have ended very badly. Mr. M up into P2, and he'll be praying. He would have been praying that that Alfa Romeo would have just peeled into the pits, but now he's going to have to get it done on the racetrack, and I think the Alfa Romeo is still going to get the superior traction. He does. It's going to be side by side up towards Casino, and the Red Bull has to tuck in behind the Alfa Romeo, accept its fate for another few corners until it can try again. What this is doing for Afrodox is it's handing him the race on a silver platter. Mr. M provisionally in P2. Pantry Star just ahead of him on the road needs to make a pit stop, and the longer he sits behind the Alfa Romeo, the better the chance is for Afrodox to get up the road. Now Pantry Star, it actually looked like he backed out of that for a second. Not sure if he gave that position up or if he made some sort of mistake, or not sure what happened there, but it did look like he just got off the throttle. I won't be surprised if we see him coming into the pits at the end of this lap. Seems like he just was defending that position so hard, and then it just seemed like he almost gave it away at the entrance of the tunnel. Does not go into the pits. Wonder how much longer he wants to take these medium tyres. Said there were two drivers in the field that were still on their mediums. It was Pantry Star and Smurf. Smurf has abandoned those mediums. He's on a brand new set of hards, so only the one driver in the field. Still on the same set of tyres they started the race on. He's taken those tyres further than anyone has taken the hard compound. 19 laps on those mediums. What all the other drivers will be able to take from this is they will see exactly how far those mediums will go. Still a long time in this race. Lap 21 of 39. Venom, he has got a new set of tyres, 1 lap old mediums. Now he's going to have the superior pace over the cars ahead of him. On any other circuit that would be great. On this circuit still means you've got a lot of work ahead of you. He's got his teammates just ahead of him, but I don't think there's going to be any position swaps. This is 4 position, 4 P7, 4 points. And they've both made their pit stops. They don't need to pit again, so these Aston Martins are fighting for position. And unless they want to bring both those cars home in the points, we're going to see them racing. That's as close as you can get without getting any damage. As close as you can get. These Aston Martins, front wing right up to the diffuser, and push, 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 but the last thing you want to do is take out your teammate. Ocon tried to take out his teammate earlier. It almost worked. But unfortunately for Haas, they lost both cars earlier on today. They would prefer to have a result like this. Divan in the Haas, currently P3. On a different strategy to the 2 cars ahead of him. He's on a set of hard tyres. Might find at the end of the race his tyres are going to be in better shape than the cars around him. But he's not going to be able to do much about Afrodox unless a safety car comes out to cancel out that gap. Absolutely huge gap. Almost half a minute. I'm used to talking about seconds on these broadcasts, not usually half a minute. Just showing dominance around the streets of Monte Carlo. Afrodox, Mr. Rem, Divan, Andre has actually made his way up to P4, so just outside the podium positions, but 4 seconds away from the podium positions. Driver ahead of him does have a penalty. Let's have a look at that penalty. Can just get to the right screen. There we go. It's a 3-second penalty for Divan. So that is some good information for Andre to know. Overtaking here in Monte Carlo, incredibly difficult, but if he wants a podium, he does not need to overtake Divan, he just needs to get close to him. So if Andre can get close to that horse, he could steal a podium here tonight. Driver we haven't spoken about too much this evening when it comes to podium possibilities, but that's what happens here in Monaco. Things can surprise you. And of course, with it being the shortest racetrack on the calendar, any sort of mistake in the pits, whether it's slow to release you, whether you double stack, with it being the shortest race on the calendar, you're going to feel that double stack the most. So you've really got to be in communication with your teammate, know what he's doing. Around a track like this, any mistake can cost you a victory or a podium. Take one hell of a mistake, cost that Mercedes a victory. We have seen it in the past. Drivers cruising to victory with 2 or 3 laps to go, making an error. Remember, that break in concentration can happen at any time. Got to be able to just block out everything. The only thing you can be thinking about, well, there's only 2 things you should be thinking about. You should be thinking about where is the apex, where is the braking point of the next corner, and where is the apex of the next corner. And once you've done those 2 steps, well, you start again. Where is the braking point? Where is the apex? Where is the braking point? Where is the apex? And it just continues for 39 laps. And if your concentration breaks just for a couple of seconds, could be enough. Put all the hard work and all the practice down the drain. Mr. M in P2 lost so much time behind the Alfa Romeo. That gap was already large, but by the time he got past the Alfa Romeo, it was even larger. Remember, at one stage Afrodox was taking a second out of the field per lap. It's actually, that average has gone higher than that now, because the gap is 32 seconds in 26 laps. So he's taken over a second out of the field per lap. Just constant pace. One thing we can do real quick is just bring up the fastest lap of the race. Of course, it does go to your leader, so he will be picking up the full 26 points if things were to end right now. Still a far way to go. Streets of Monaco looking quite interesting in the night lights. Don't know if making Monaco a night race would fix it. I think the only thing that could fix it is making it a little bit wider, and we know that's impossible. Of course, that's why we see so many high-rise buildings in Monte Carlo, because there's simply no space. Everyone who would like to live there and even has the money to live there can't simply buy a property there. There's no space. If you drive 10 minutes in either direction, you're in France. So that is the size of Monaco. Of course, there were many small principalities within the territories of France, and all of them have been absorbed by France over, well, many hundreds of years. Monaco was never absorbed by France because France cut them a deal. And it's got all to do with that casino. Since gambling was illegal throughout most of Europe, France decided that they would make the casino in Monte Carlo. Europeans could travel to Monte Carlo to do their gambling, and then there would be no income tax in Monte Carlo because the casino would go on to fund the state. Of course, that's why rich people want residence here, because there's no income tax. If you're a British driver, state will take 30% of your salary, and when the guys earn as much as these guys do, that's a big difference. Afrodox, gap keeps on growing. He's not slowing down, he's not calming down, he's pushing till the end. Divan pushing till the end. We just saw that Haas step out. Luckily he was in the middle of the track when the Haas stepped out. If he was a little closer to the Armco, could have got himself a puncture earlier on like Lance Stroll did, just kissing the Armco barrier. Sometimes that's all it takes. Can be pretty unpredictable. We've seen the guys hit the Armco pretty hard and simply bounce off it, and sometimes all it takes is the slightest brush. So Carlos Sainz also getting a puncture from a very small brush with the underfloor of the McLaren. The gaps at the front now getting really big. We've got to go all the way down to P9 to find our first battle for position. It's a battle between Spikes and Skull, the leading Ferrari. One of the Ferraris inside the points, one of the Ferraris just outside the points. They're running in P10 and 11. Both those cars looked strong in qualifying. Fortunately, Louis didn't get the start he would have wanted. And Skull had that 5 grid place penalty. 5 grid places at any track hurts a lot. 5 grid places in Monaco hurts a lot more than that. Afrodox back into the pits, but he had that free pit stop. Remember, absolutely huge gap down to P2. This is the man in P3. Then Venom. Probably would have been hoping for a little bit more out of these mediums. He is closing the gap to the podium, but he's not closing it quite fast enough. Divan does have a penalty, but Venom's got one of his own. So those will just cancel each other out. He's not going to get any benefit from Divan's penalty. Let's just make sure. Actually, Venom's got a 5-second penalty. So Divan, just the 3-second penalty. That's obviously track limits. Venom with a 5-second penalty. So that's obviously relating to a pit stop. Now Venom up into the top 3. Divan and Afrodox, he's done that pit stop. He's got away with that pit stop because everybody else did one too. So he leads by 27 seconds on lap 30 of 39. We're now in the final countdown. This is when the leader starts to count the laps. Just wants to get on with it. One of the most challenging circuits on the calendar. You have a lot of tracks where it's all about speed, it's all about driving on the absolute edge. This track's not about the absolute edge. It's about going fast, but doing so in a smart manner. Anyone can go fast around Monaco, but most of them crash. So going fast around here and staying out of the Armco is quite the accomplishment. We didn't see a lot of wheel-to-wheel battles today. If we did see wheel-to-wheel battles, maybe we would have seen more retirements. Everybody's sort of been in a bit of a race of their own, and as I say that, we do find a battle. And there's a Ferrari jumping the chicane, just not able to make the corner. And that was Louis that jumped the chicane. Skull still looking for that P9, Spike's just ahead of him. Fredok's rubbing salt into the wounds. Fastest lap of the race. Lap 32 of 39. Divan is now the man in P2. He's 9 seconds ahead of Mr. M. Remember, different strategy. Mr. M came in for a fresh set of softs. Divan decided, I'll stay out, hold on to track position. I can take these hards to the end. And if you can catch me, well then you still have to pass me. So many unique factors around Monte Carlo. That's a strategy that would work anywhere else. You go in, gap's only 10 seconds, you've got the fresher tyres. Sure, you can come back into it, but in Monaco, what are you going to do when you get there? So difficult to make an overtake. If you're going to make an overtake, you've got to be committed. You've got to know exactly where you're going to make it. You do things on the fly in Monaco. Things don't usually work out well. Lap 33 of 39. Do apologize by the occasional silences. I'm keeping one eye on the Indy. But if you are interested in the Indy 500, I can tell you that it's definitely delayed. There's no one in the grandstands, and the rain is falling. And yeah, there's just people walking around with umbrellas. So if you're watching here on SKR, you're not missing the Indy 500. Not even sure if it'll get underway at this point. Fredok leads the way from Divan. Mr. M P3. Now remember, Mr. M, he's got a much quicker tyre. He's on the soft tyre. Fresh soft tyre versus Divan's old hards. 3.8 seconds is the advantage. 3.7. So Mr. M closing quickly. 3.6. But like we've said, once he gets there, it's not going to be as easy as wait for the next DRS zone and simply steal the position. He's going to have to fight for that position. In fact, I've just noticed Divan does have that penalty. So the gap is 3.2 seconds. Mr. M just needs to keep the gap within 3 seconds and he'll take back P2. Divan doesn't need to worry about losing any more positions than that, because Venom's got a penalty, as does Conboy. Andre close behind Conboy, so he will pick up a position as a result of that penalty. P5 still on the cards. Gull still holding on to the final point. He looked strong in qualifying. Just that penalty really pushed him down the order in the race. How difficult it can be to come through the field. This man didn't have to come through the field. He started in pole, came out of turn 1 in the lead, led until his pit stop. And now he's going on to what appears to be a clear victory. Divan coming under pressure on track. He knows he's got that penalty. He knows he's going to lose the position anyway. So will he defend? Or will he simply let the Red Bull go? If he is able to keep that Red Bull behind him, it's going to be a very impressive drive. Still 4 laps to go with a car that's clearly faster than you behind you. He's got the soft tyre. He's going to be so frustrated. He wants to get on with it, wants to get himself up into P2. He's not going to be able to catch the leader, but he'd love to make the position on track rather than on the timing screen. That's one thing we can't see from, well, that's one of many things we can't see from the comms box. Just asking about the fuel levels. And of course, a lot of cars will underfuel, especially here in Monte Carlo, with the expectation of safety cars. But since we have not had any, if you did underfuel, you might find yourself in a bit of trouble. Somebody mentioning Pantry Star might be having issues with fuel. He's slipping down the order. He's up down into P8. We will see at the end here who's underfueled, who hasn't underfueled. One person who I don't think is underfueled, because he doesn't seem to be managing his pace, is Afrodox. He's picked up a penalty as well. So the only one in the top 5 without a penalty is Mr. M. He's desperately trying to take P2 away on track. He's already got P2 secured, so long as he keeps that penalty column clean. But he wants to do it on track. Every racing driver wants to do it on track. Whether you're a real racing driver, whether you're a virtual racing driver, you want to do it on track. Getting it in the penalties column, it's just not the same. The bragging rights worth so much more. Yeah, just pointing out that the only thing that could make this interesting is if that penalty next to Afrodox's name was for 50 seconds. If he doesn't slow down, well, I think if we had another 5 laps in this race, he could have opened that gap up to a minute. How insane is that? A 1 minute gap around Monaco, the shortest track on the calendar. Should give you the closest field. One thing, luckily for all the viewers at home and luckily for all the drivers in the rest of the field, is that it's not a 100% race. Otherwise he could very well lap half this field. Sounds crazy now, but it's something that happened many times in the early 90s. Where a dominant Williams team or a dominant McLaren team would go on to lap the entire field, with the exception of their teammate. Ooh, that horse just stepping out of shape. Just giving Divan a wake-up call. 22 laps on those hard tyres. Just really stretched them. He's done a great job. Mr. M came at him on those softs. Would have wanted to get past him. He would have been going left, right, giving him all sorts of trouble in the mirrors, but he's been able to shake him off. But I think Mr. M has just realised that car ahead of me's got a penalty. There's no point in retiring at this stage. Stay close behind. Except P3 on the track, P2 in the results. And considering the dominance from Afrodox, I think Mr. M can be very happy with this result. Well, I almost had a really big fright. I went silent for a second, because luckily I went silent and I didn't get overexcited. We went to Afrodox to see him finish off the race, and we saw Conboy going off circuit and retiring, and well, they're both Mercedes, and for a moment I thought that's impossible. Afrodox over the line, wins the race, first man to take the checkered flag. His nearest opponent, well, he's still approaching the hairpin. He's still approaching the bus stop hairpin. So Afrodox will be waiting at the driver interviews by himself for quite some time, waiting for everyone else to show up. Now the checkered flag falling for all the drivers that were a lap behind. We just now wait for Divan, Mr. Rem and Venom to come over the line in P2, 3 and 4. Don't think penalties will play a part. Mr. Rem will go up into P2, Venom will lose a position. Not Venom, Divan will lose a position. Mr. Rem up into P2, Venom down into Divan down into P3, and Venom had a penalty. The gaps were so big that he was able to hold on to his position. We now just await your final official results. There we go, Mercedes on the top step. You don't see that every day. So Afrodox winning the race, also taking the fastest lap of the race with a 1:10.4, picks up the full 26 points in this final round. Mr. MP2, brave drive, then Divan P3, Venom P4, had a good race, had to pull an interesting strategy out. Smurf P5, Andre strong race P6, then Spikes P7, Skull P8, Chums P9, and Louis bringing the second Ferrari home in the points. No points tonight. Conboy P11, Top Gun P12, Harsh Cartoon finishing off in 13th, and then Pantry Star making up the field in 14th. We had the one DNF, and that was Martin de Bruin early on in the race. Of course, I want to thank you all for joining us. We've got a few viewers in here tonight at one stage, so if you did watch, if you did enjoy, leave a like on the video. Of course, this is the end of season 7, this is the finale. Next time we will be back will probably be with the new game, and I will keep you updated to the status of season 8 and when it will be beginning. Of course, we'll be back tomorrow night with the finale of SAFRL Tier 1, and then again for the finale of SAFRL Tier 2 on Wednesday night, and then DRS on Thursday. I hope to see you there, and until then, remember to leave a like, remember to subscribe if you haven't done that already, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.